here at Vareto, I really want to start with a hybrid community because I want to meet people where they are. Some folks, like I said, these VPs and CFOs, they don't really want to be on Slack or some, online platform. But again, their direct reports, their teammates do because that's where they are all day long. So I have to create spaces for where they both meet, So I believe in having that online forum for those that really want to participate in that. And I'm thinking about doing cohorts where there's like these small groups, like where they can really workshop on things together, be it like maybe there's a goal, like I want to become like a director of finance by the end of the year. Let's work on that together. And then I can make the connections with the more senior CFOs in our community. So, and those senior CFO, like the senior leaders, they want to share their knowledge. They want to help that next generation of financial leaders get to the next step, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to be there and offer up their expertise, their experiences, their connections. And so that's where I believe in having that online and in-person component.
Hey everyone, I'm Joel Premack, host of the Community-Led Growth Show. Today I'm joined by Vera DeVera, head of community at Vareto. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Vera.
Oh, thanks for having me, Joel. I'm excited.
Of course. Well, let's start off the show with a quick 30-second intro about yourself, please.
Sure. Well, I am a community builder. I help people find their people. It's been a lifelong passion of mine ever since I was a teenager in high school, where I was a shy girl and kind of hanging in the back. And then later on in life, through a various series of events, I've navigated my way from working at the Berkeley PD to San Francisco Opera and then to nonprofits. And then ultimately in the last few years of my career in tech startups. So that circuitous journey has brought me a lot of cool experiences interacting with different people. And along the way, I've just really loved gathering people together to, galvanize on the things that they're passionate about.
Amazing. And I love that you know that about yourself, is you love to bring people together around some sort of like commonality and common thread. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I've been at Vareto for a little over about 6 to 7 weeks. I know it sounds like not so much time, but I was previously at Ironclad for 4.5 years, and I was the first community builder at Ironclad. And so I had an opportunity to join the amazing team at Vareto, which is a fintech platform. We help companies better plan, report, and make business decisions, primarily with FP&A professionals like CFOs, VPs of finance. And we really believe in, helping people, do better together because we are better together. No person's an island. And so, like I said, I just joined a couple months ago, if you will, but I bring a lot of experience that I learned during my time at Ironclad, which is a similar platform, but it's for the legal tech. It's a legal tech platform where I was primarily working with in-house legal teams. So I kind of work from one like persona, if you will, of lawyers are tend to be looked at as like, oh, scary, they're bad cops. And then you think about finance, like, oh, scary, they're going to tell me no. So it's like I've been working with groups of people that historically have been known to be the towers of no, but I have found them to be really delightful people that really are earnestly interested in like helping with the strategy across the business. And they're not just heads down, but they're really thoughtful and want to do better together. So that's why I'm excited to join the team at Vareto.
Amazing. And since you joined, what was something that showed you that they were ready to hire someone full-time for community and invest in a community program and strategy?
That's a great question. Interestingly enough, I wasn't looking for a role. I had some time to invest at Ironclad, but, they were picking my brain, as like an advisory sort of role. And I literally asked the head of marketing, Melody Chen, who had worked with at Ironclad. She'd just joined as well. I was like, do you have a role in 6 months? And she just looked at me and said, why don't we just hire you now? Because of the value that they knew I could bring on board really quickly. I also happened to work with the CEO and co-founder, Kat. She was previously the head of product at Ironclad. So they knew my work, but they also saw the uh, they knew my work because I had built the community from scratch at Ironclad, and they knew I could do the same. And actually, again, like I said, with my learnings, I could probably do it faster than I did when I started at Ironclad, where in both cases I had no community. And so coming to Vareto, their Series A, they just came out of stealth, and we're building the go-to-market function this year. And I think really it's about people, and they're so people focused. And I have really been delighted to have such support from the executive team, especially the co-founders, Lilit and Kat, that they really care about the end user, the client, the customer. And so building the community is going to be such like an exciting initiative, because we're really focused on making sure that we not only build a product that makes sense for the customers, but also like building that kind of the feeling. I always, as a community builder, I always focus on the feeling I want people to feel. I want people to feel confident and safe and like assured that they know that they're doing the right thing and doing cool and innovative stuff, and not just the same old, same old. And so I really, truly am blessed to, I hate to use that word, but I feel blessed to have the executive backing to pursue that for Vareto.
That's amazing. And I definitely think you very are fortunate to be able to have that amount of support to then create a space for customers and the members that you wish to have in the community, and like help them achieve their goals too. So I agree that you're definitely very blessed.
It's not always the case. A lot of times you're
Yeah.
fighting the board or other stakeholders. Like, I don't understand why we're focusing on community when we should be going out and like, driving other initiatives. Like, well, really, again, it's understanding the people and the pains that they're facing. So how do you best do that? You got to listen and talk to them. So I think that's where community shines, is that it really creates that place where you can do that.
I love that line. Thank you so much. So you just said that. I'm like, ooh, like you need to start like a quote book or something, not like that line right there, page 1.
Well, one of the things I think about when I build community that has been my North Star is optimizing for trust. And I cannot take credit for this quote. Is actually, I learned this from Ironclad's, one of the board of directors or board members is named Ali Rogani. He's currently the managing director at Y Combinator. And he once said this to us at Ironclad. He said, optimize for trust. We can be technical experts, but if you really think about the relationships that you're building, people really open up when you build that trust. And I think that goes for anything in business, not just community, but across the business. If you're being a little bit vulnerable and admitting, hey, I don't know how to do this, and asking each other for help, that's where things open up, and that's where you can really like move the needle on the things that you're trying to do. And one of the things I learned, so I did a series of interviews actually when I was at Ironclad of our customers and non-customers, just to learn what was out there for them. And many of them were in larger communities with thousands of people, but they felt like they liked the Ironclad community because it was more intimate. It created a space where they felt seen and heard. And that really resonated with me, because it felt like they weren't just a drop in the bucket, that I actually really give them a place for them to ask questions and then get responses like in real time, or, especially in real time. I often curate a lot of like intimate gatherings, maybe like 20 or less people on Zoom, where they just do what I call real talk. It's like, it's not being recorded. It's conversations that you're afraid to have online sometimes, and typing it out. I'm like nervous about who's going to see it.
Yeah.
You're actually really talking to your peers and like, how do I solve this? Because this is really eating me up at night. Can you help me? Like, I'm afraid to ask the question, but you find out everybody else is wondering the same thing too. And so it was interesting learning, because in the beginning, when I, building community, like I said, I started from zero. But at the time, Ironclad was doing like rooftop law school, which was just gathering for pizza and beer and learning about case law. And I thought, like, what can we do? Like, we started doing community dinners, which were not really a thing. Not many people, not many organizations are doing that. Just bring people together for, again, kind of these intimate dinners and getting conversations started. And then started doing that, nationwide, especially in New York and San Francisco. and then doing like leadership circles where we talked about budget, like all the scary stuff. So that's why I realized like it's good to give the people these places to talk. I don't know if it's just a thing particular to lawyers because they don't like to put themselves out there with their names attached to things, because God forbid somebody comes and says, they said that online, I have proof. We don't want to be tied to that. But I think it's true for all humans that we want that sense of place and belonging.
I definitely agree. And I definitely get that because my dad's a lawyer. So I understand some of what you're saying on a whole new level. Over here as a kid of a lawyer.
Oh,
I do. But sticking with today's conversation,
sorry.
and no. It was a great tangent, but I'm like, we're not going to get too far into being a child of a lawyer in that whole world. We're
I'm sure there's a community for that, Joel.
That would be really interesting.
It would be.
I'm a little intrigued and a little scared at the same time of what I would find. But you just mentioned that Vareto is a Series A startup, just came out of stealth mode. So I'm just curious how you all are approaching building its community now from zero.
Indeed. Well, so like our founders are really amazing. They have amazing connections. So right now I've been in this listening mode, discovery. And so I've crafted my strategy, but a lot of it's some, in phases of like discovery and then like seeding the community and then actually activation. I plan to go live in Q1. I'm very cognizant that we target the financial professional, like you said, the CFOs and the VPs of finance. Right now, I'm sure this is true everywhere, especially in B2B SaaS. Everyone's in that annual planning mode, right? Heads down. Oh gosh, we have to figure out our 2023 plan. So me joining now would not be a good time to activate a community when all of the people that we part of the community would be like, I'm too busy. I'm like, they're like scrambling and making sure that their teams are aligned. So in terms of the timeline, I'm pushing it out to Q1 of 2023. But in the meantime, I'm doing this discovery process, like I said, doing a lot of interviews of people that are, in these roles. And I'm trying to understand what has worked for them in terms of what community means to them and why they would want to join one. There are dozens of large communities out there for, I won't name them specifically, but there are lots where they have thousands of members. And I had a conversation with one VP of finance also at a tech startup, and he said, I joined that community, but it was a lot of like staff accountants, not people like me. I wanted to go into that community because I wanted to meet other CFOs and VPs, but they weren't the right people. So I was wondering why they let anybody else in. So it had like not that exclusivity. There was another comment like, I want to just talk in small groups. I don't want to put myself out there because I'm nervous about what people will see and see my name attached to it and have that anonymity, or else kind of those closed cohorts. And so what led me to develop the strategy has been around again, going back to the feeling, what feeling do I want them to feel and what are the needs of the business? Obviously, Vareto wants to build its brand and brand awareness, but also help build operational excellence for its customers and also those who are considering buying Vareto. And then for those that would be members, it's like they also want to be empowered. They want to learn from those who've been there, done that. And they also want to make those connections, really meaningful connections where they can meet people that are facing the same problems or have solved the problems or are like in these really visionary roles, because there are some really forward-thinking CFOs. So how do I get those kind of two groups together? And so ultimately, my strategy is kind of centered around this 3 pillars: meaningful connections, that operational excellence, and then the access to resources that empower that innovative and strategic work. Because I want them to feel empowered and confident in the work that they're doing. Because if you can imagine, if you're in finance and everybody's looking to you for the numbers and those numbers are off, that really throws your business into turmoil, right? Like missing a number is it keeps people get nervous that they're fired. I've been in the FP&A Reddit subreddit, and a lot of it's like, I'm worried I get fired. I'm so anxious. I haven't slept. There's a lot of angst, and I feel so much for them. And so I want to create that place where like, it's okay, we got you. So that's really kind of the spirit of the community that we want to build at Vareto.
Nice. I love that, especially that idea of like, we have you and like we're here to support you, and like we're here to be like whatever you need for like that moment.
Yeah.
Not always like judgment or like what you feel like in work. Because sometimes like what you feel in work, you need like another balancing act of like, hey, I can mess up and it's okay. Like that is fine. Everybody does, kind of thing.
Yeah, and indeed. And I think, I mean, I never really believe like community hard selling. Like it's not the role. Again, we want to help people feel supported, but I think inherently it is part of the product, because we do help people. We do help these folks, plan and report and collaborate with the business. So in essence, it's like, how can we help you kind of just work with everyone else better together? Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of a natural output or outcome, if you will, of that kind of intention with the product. But again, I put a lot of heart into the work that I do, and I really do care about people and that they do the best work that they can. So whatever I can do to provide that, I'll make it happen.
I love that. Go get them. You got it. I fully believe in you. Now I'm like, I just want to sit here and eat some popcorn and watch you build this. And like watch you absolutely crush it. I'm like, ooh, I need some skinny pop or something up in here.
Well, I think it's really interesting that, like I said, what I learned from Ironclad is that people just really want to grow in their careers. Initially we went after like what's called the general counsel, the GC, kind of the head of the team. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times they're not in the day-to-day doing the work. It's the people under them. And so like, what could we do to help them become champions and become recognized and put a spotlight on them? So that's what I started working on. And I've been so rewarded. I actually just had dinner recently with a former community member, of the past company. And they said, without me, like without the community, or i.e. me, I hate to say, I don't like to toot my own horn. I'm very modest, but they said, if it weren't for me, they wouldn't have got into public speaking because they never were given the opportunity to be a public speaker. And now they're like, do tons of events. And I'm like, so proud of them. So whatever way I can help, or I've matched people with job opportunities. I think that's just kind of a beautiful thing about communities, that you're really helping each other, not just, again, like doing the work, but like that professional development, that personal growth.
Yeah, no, I get that. I've definitely had some people on this show who have been guests and have been like, this is like something I've always wanted to do, and I didn't think I'd get to do it, especially at like somewhat earlier in my career. And I'm like, well, once this episode is live, you'll officially be searchable on Spotify. And I've definitely sent some people private videos of me like screen recording on my phone, typing in their name into Spotify, watching the episode show up. And sending it to them, I'm like, congratulations, you are now searchable on Spotify.
That's amazing. See, and that's super cool.
It's like a little fun thing. I'm like, it's a side product of already having the podcast. If you're going to end up there, but it's just like a fun little touch of like, hey, you're on there. It's a big deal. You got this. It really
is. I think people really appreciate that, and again, it's about the value, what people get out of things. It's like, they're not, you have to think about like what's quality over quantity. I think that's one of the big things I always hear. Like, I heard a lot, like, how do you prove the worth of community? How do you prove that it's working? I literally had a customer who wrote this, our chief customer success officer, my previous company, that said, for 2 years, I attended community events and I was never sold to once. And I'm proud to become a customer because I feel like I can trust the people here at Iron, at the company. And that's why they became a customer, which to me is totally amazing.
That's amazing.
I know people are like, oh, that took 2 years. I'm like, it's again, back to relationships. you want it to be really authentic and genuine. I never treat people like they're a number. I treat people like they're humans, because they are.
Yeah.
And they deserve to be. They don't need to be just a cell in a spreadsheet.
Exactly. I love that. So now that you've shared a little bit about your strategy, about how you're approaching building community at Vareto, where and how do you really plan to build the community? And why did you select that option, really? Because there are so many nowadays.
Oh, there really are. Like I said, I'm still in my discovery phase, and I've already had an idea of where I wanted to be. So I want the community to be hybrid. I learned from Ironclad, we had done a lot of having in person, and then later on had gone into a larger platform for the online part. But here at Vareto, I really want to start with a hybrid community, because I want to meet people where they are. Some folks, like I said, these VPs and CFOs, they don't really want to be on Slack or some, online platform. But again, their direct reports, their teammates do, because that's where they are all day long. So I have to create spaces for where they both meet, So I believe in having that online forum for those that really want to participate in that. And I'm thinking about doing cohorts where there's these small groups, where they can really workshop on things together, be it maybe there's a goal, I want to become a director of finance by the end of the year. Let's work on that together. And then I can make the connections with the more senior CFOs in our community. So, and those senior CFO, the senior leaders, they want to share their knowledge. They want to help that next generation of financial leaders get to the next step, right? Mm-hmm. So they're going to be there and offer up their expertise, their experiences, their connections. And so that's where I believe in having that online and in-person component. So, and I honestly did have a VP finance that I don't like to meet that much. So once a quarter is fine. And I was like, well, that's a lot less than I expected, but sure, I'll make that happen. And again, it's about meeting your community where they are, because you don't want to be, you want to be valuable to them, right? So however it may be.
Of course. And I think also something that could happen and I think it's pretty common with some community programs, is that you might start it at one cadence, but once members start to see either value and really start to make genuine connections with people who are also there, whether it's events, virtual or in person, a mentorship program, one-on-one matching type programs, etc., that they almost want it more sometimes once they start to see that there is value, and they've already kind of gotten their beak wet a little bit. So maybe, who knows, it might go up from quarterly. You never know.
It's true. That's a great point. And that's one of the things I want to do. The part of the program is I am going to have these different levels of one to many. So kind of more of the broader, how I got here chats, to something that's one to few. And then I definitely want to curate one-to-one, either mentorship or buddy sort of program where we're in this together. How can we get there? And enable them, empower them to meet on their own. I don't have to do everything. I have to make sure things are scalable too. I'm only one person right now. So how can I help them do that?
No, I definitely get that. And I think that that's very important and smart that you're thinking about scalability early too. So that as it continues to grow, then you already feel pretty equipped and prepared for the scale, as opposed to, okay, now we got to change the process.
Yes.
Throw some duct tape on. Now we're ready for this next level of growth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, you mentioned it earlier about showing ROI. So now I need to know, how do you plan to show ROI for your community building journey at Vareto?
Great question. Well, I have to admit, a number I do report on and have reported on is influence on pipeline. And I say influence, I don't say actual numbers, because community is just a touch in the journey of a customer or a prospective customer. So it may not be immediate, but there is that kind of lifetime value of somebody coming in and starting to use the product. Then also like the quality of members. I want to make sure the right people are in the community so that it does hold value for those that join. And so like, you're like, how does you know the quality? Well, we do have like a, ICP. So like tying that back to our business goals, that is one thing I need to be mindful of. And so that making sure that the quality of people are the right fit. So I definitely don't want like a new college grad who's never had work experience in a community of like, directors are like, oh, you don't know at all what I'm talking about. That would be a bad match for everyone. And then content is really interesting. Community is responsible for a lot of really great organic content, quotes and customer case studies, and just meeting people and sharing their knowledge. And so I would love to know, I don't know how you can really measure this yet, but are people actually applying what they're learning? And I think I did see some of that previously at Ironclad, where I had customers who like had really grokked at the product and like became like architects, and they're like, I want to share my knowledge now. I'm like, that's so cool. And so I think that may seem like a small thing, but I think, it's really cool when you can say, hey, there are like 10 customers who got a raise because of learning how to be masterful at using Vareto. Like that's pretty amazing. I think that speaks in itself, that if people get raises or promotions because of the work that they do and implementing something really innovative in their company. So, and then another thing that I measure is NPS. Just like right now, as I'm rolling out the event program, for example, I already hosted one in-person dinner in New York, like on week 3 of my job, which is incredibly fast. But really, it was an intimate event. But I'm really proud to say that people connected afterwards. Customers had never met each other. One person's already agreed to do a blog post for us, and another 2 have already helped each other with their financial models. And so like, that is like really cool. That's a little qualitative and not so much quantitative, but it's great outcomes again from the community efforts.
Definitely. And those are like, I think especially early signs that sometimes aren't always going to be like data driven or data informed, but something like what you just mentioned about like someone offering to write a blog post or someone helping someone else like with a financial model. I think that those are early signs that yes, this is like needed, and like these level of connections are valuable to their peers too, and that they do want to give back. And like, I think applying content, as you mentioned a second ago, having people share their like learnings and expertise in a blog post is a great way to measure content. So I'm here for this. I'm so excited now. I'm like, I really need that bag of skinny pop to watch this.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have 2 more events next week. We're doing our first virtual panel with the CFO of Gainsight, who big inside it, which is really cool. So I'm super stoked to hear from Alka, Casey Wu at Landing, and a couple, other folks that customers of ours have Abnormal Security and at Health Gorilla. So I'm really leaning in because we're talking about annual planning and why it's dead. And it's all about continuous planning. And then we're also holding a community dinner in San Francisco. So very stoked
exciting.
Hear, kind of feedback again. Like I'm still in that learning phase, kind of a sponge taking it all in. Like, is this the right thing for you? So
I love it. Well, I'm really excited for you. I hope it goes well, crossing all the fingers and all the toes.
Oh, yeah.
And I also have to say, fun fact, a member of Gainsight will be a guest on the podcast for season 2.
Sweet. That's awesome. It's an ecosystem.
It really is. It's beautiful.
It really is.
Now that you've shared that you've been on this journey of doing some listening with people who essentially fit the ICP of Vareto, learning more about like what they'd like to see out of a community, what are your like biggest learnings from this process really of starting a community from zero that you wish you knew earlier?
Yeah, I'll kind of go back to my journey as a community builder, which actually extends beyond Ironclad. I also worked at a small startup called Yurtle, where I got to work with Shira Levine. I'm doing a call out for Shira Levine. She was the director of community at Sephora and started the Beauty Insider program. But she was also my boss at Yurtle, so I really learned a lot from her about. She called it the pyramid, like how like you'll have a small amount of folks who are really kind of the loudest in your community, kind of really contributing that a bulk of the content, but there's still those kind of like lurkers or like, oh, what's going on in here? And then they'll hopefully you'll eventually engage them, right? I think what I learned is that what I didn't know before was that I never really thought of people in our community by way of personas, and this is something I learned really recently, kind of thinking about them. And I recognized it, but never really put a name to them. And so I really care about engagement and content creation. And so I've noticed that those that are most vocal in community are either these educators, these validators, status seekers, or collaborators, and that they always want to like do certain things. Like they won't do all of them. And I think that's really what I've learned. There's no one size fits all. Just because a customer says that they're really happy and they're like willing to do a customer referral doesn't mean they're the right fit for doing a webinar or a podcast, because they might not be great at public speaking or they're shy. Or you may have those that love to teach others how to do things, but they're like terrified of doing it live. So they'd rather just do a recording on their own independently. So it's again, kind of like, I never really like I said, I hate to use the word label, but I never really thought of that in categories. And I think it's really helpful for me now to kind of think about, oh, this person's great for these things. And then like, kind of slot them in, if you will. And I always have a conversation just to understand where they do want to contribute, because I let them decide, right? Versus telling them you have to do this quote for a press release. I think that's kind of the key. And so also wanting to make sure that, it's not all about the numbers. Like I was talking about earlier, you can have really amazing community that's really large. It's great if that's what people want. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we don't lose people and make them feel like they're just invisible. And so that's really hard to balance, I think, still, even today. So that's one thing that I'd like to think about as I grow and scale the community, is like how can we be mindful of that balance, and again creating like a large community, but at the same time making it still feel intimate so that people feel safe and heard, feel seen and heard.
Yeah, no, I love that, especially about how you're talking about meeting people where they are and like what's comfortable for them too. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. What are the 3 community B2B trends in SaaS that you're most excited for in 2023 and beyond?
Goodness, I don't know if I could think of 3. Do I get minus points for that? I
No.
think really what's top of mind for me are tools to track and measure impact. I know that's metrics and measuring ROI is such a big deal, and it's fairly new for a community. Well, I don't know if I say it's fairly new, but I know I have always kind of tended to go with like pipeline influence, as I mentioned before, but there are other ways to mention more than just the vanity metrics. So I'm really excited about tools that are out there that are helping me figure out, where people are, like I said, things like no endorsement, but just, tools like Common Room, for example, like how do I see where people are and how they're contributing or engaging with our brand. In a lot of my conversations, I'm really been surprised to hear again, kind of that movement for the community to want these more intimate interactions, kind of that one to few or one to one. I think that's always been there. But I know a lot of B2B SaaS is always about more is better. At the same time, like that's totally great. But usually with that more is more, there's a lot of smaller subgroups in that. But I guess the third thing too is just like, there's a lot of great content. An old boss of mine used to call content like the kitten multiplier. You do one thing and you can make lots of kittens out of it. Shout out Joyce. So if she ever hears this.
I love it.
But, I was really delighted, for example, I went on vacation when I was at Ironclad, like in August. It was my first vacation in like 2 years, only because I just hadn't gotten around to actually taking my vacation. And when I got back, it was really cool to hear my teammate, Mackenzie, say, we took all of like the community content you did and we turned it into like your first 100 days as a general counsel. Like they just took all the content that these members contributed, like just from like imposter syndrome or like, checklist or how I got here's, they consolidated into like this amazing guide. And I was like, that's super cool. And that was a kitten made out of that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just love like how content and community is really just really blossoming, if you will. I feel
Yeah,
like content has always been a marketing thing, but there's so much content in community. So I think I'm
thousand
really
percent
excited
agree.
about that. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. And I 1000% agree. Like the amount of gems that are in every community is off the radar. I think that there's so much great content just being shared. And now it's like, how do you save it per se for like later and like
Mhm.
share it out?
Yeah, it's incredible, and I am fortunate to be like you and I, Joel. We get to see that firsthand in our
Oh
roles.
yeah.
We're the ones talking to our members and hearing
Mhm.
from them. One of the things I say this a lot is, and actually started using it when I schedule a lot of one-on-ones too with members or prospective members. Um, One thing I've shared is always ask for air, and this is something I learned from a talent recruiter, Vivian Wexler, who I got to work with on a webinar on like how to, find your next role during the Great Recession, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
She said, always ask for air, which is advice, information, and referrals. But I just loved how she phrased it, like ask for air, because it makes you feel like
Light.
this,
Yeah.
this sense of like you get energy from breathing. And I just love that because air is that when you meet people,
Mhm.
you just never know how they're going to touch your life. And so that's what I love about community. That's what gets me up every day is like, how am I going to help somebody today in some way that I don't even see in front of me? So
Aw. I might need to get a box of tissues now and skip the skinny pop. Aw. I really like that. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And I 1000% agree with that. I think for me, it's just so exciting to see like how today am I gonna like help somebody in like a way that's gonna be super impactful for them.
right.
And to me, I'm like, this is part of my job, but to you, it means so much. And I love that.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited. Oh, just got
Well,
all the feels over here.
well, good.
Yeah.
That's what I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you today, Joel.
Oh, thank you. I was just about to actually say that it's been great having you on the show, Vera. Thanks again for being on the Community Growth Show. If people want to follow and or connect with you afterwards, what are the best channels and or handles for them to use?
Sure, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Vera DeVera there. Actually, I do have a name twin. She's also an amazing Vera DeVera in LA. And we are friends because we accidentally email each other. But look for me. I believe I got the V DeVera first before she did. Sorry, Vera. Secondly, you can also find me on Twitter, Vera DeVera. So at Vera DeVera on Twitter is me and not my name twin. So
Amazing. Thank you
yeah,
so much. Have a great day.
you too. Take care.